Yeah, go ahead.
Okay. Well, welcome everybody and happy early Thanksgiving. Here we are, a week out, crazy. Um, Although days don't mean anything anymore, do they? I keep thinking I all day yesterday I kept thinking it was Thursday, and then I had a panic attack at like 2, like that I had missed this meeting, but luckily I was wrong. Um, so we had a couple of things on our list. That that we wanted to talk about. One is just getting an update from Indiana on what their status is. And then there was a question posed about score sheets. We've had a pretty robust discussion on our through email, but thought we would open it up to that, and then just open the floor to any other questions people are having. So Chuck, I'll turn it over to you to start. Oh, I'm sorry. Step back a second. Paul, unless you had anything you wanted to say before we got started, before we get started.
Nope, I just wanted to let everybody know that I'll be ducking off. I've got a work thing in about 15 minutes, so if I disappear,
Okay.
that's why.
Okay.
But those are the two big things to cover, I think.
Okay. All right, Chuck, floor's yours.
Thank you very much. Good to see everybody. So first thing I want to stress is none of this is final. It's still under discussion, under review, but we're sketching some new, obviously with a virtual competition, it's going to be different. And so we're working through the agenda and the schedule. I think some of the things I can probably say, generally speaking, is we're trying to keep it at that same time period in April. Wait, no, not April. In May. Sorry, really throw you off there. But we're probably going to have to expand some days onto the competition calendar because of the virtual format. Again, we don't know what exactly that's going to look like, but it'll probably be on the front end. So it'll be a Thursday, Friday, Saturday, something along those lines potentially. Oops, I just lost my screen. Okay. And the other thing that we're going to try to do, we're going to try to still have some version of a pin exchange for the students. It may not be a pin exchange, certainly in the traditional sense, but some kind of an event at the very front end, a social event for students, for the participants throughout. And so we can have them, it'll be virtual, so it'll be a log on, sort of a thing, but we're envisioning using breakout rooms and still having people be able to interact with each other from other states and create some kind of a format for them to do that. On the back end, we're still, of course, planning the awards ceremony. Again, being a virtual platform, it'll look different, but we're trying to make that as special as we can. And we're working on, I can't really say anything yet about specifics, but we're working on some fairly high profile speakers and other folks that might be able to participate and really make this a special event for the competitors and everybody. As far as the sort of operations of it, it's still the Indiana/Evansville event. Our offices are in Indianapolis, but we're going to sort of be embedded in Evansville. We're going to use the local Evansville community, and we'll be sort of running it out of Evansville. But we'll need coordinators and all that kind of stuff. And so we're hoping to reach out to folks on the logistics for that. We're working with the COPS team right now to sort of figure out the schedule in a little more detail, and we should hopefully have that out to you. Well, I don't even know when to give an exact timeline, but sometime as soon as we can, certainly, because we know people are interested in that, and that'll drive the whole schedule. But we're looking towards having the registration portal, that stuff, open up in the early part of the new year. And so just some things we're looking at as far as the schedule goes are the time zones, because Evansville is in the central time zone, but obviously we need to be East Coast all the way to West Coast, et cetera, and try to get as many rounds as we can in and how we power match, all that sort of thing. So the schedule will be out fairly soon. I think we're working on that, and we have a proposal and some things that we're sort of fine tuning, and that will be coming from the national board in the not too distant future. I'm happy to answer any questions if you have specific questions about what this is going to look like. And again, we not have the answers, but at least at this point. But I'm interested if you have thoughts on what you want to see, what you don't want to see, et cetera. I'm happy to take that into consideration as well and just have a conversation. Or if anybody else from the board or COPS who we already discussed some of these things, if you want to weigh in, I'm happy to have you have the floor as well.
Questions do folks have? I had one that I had been meaning to ask you and keep forgetting. When you're talking about the students competing, have you thought through whether or not you're going to do the everybody at their own computer, or people, the whole team's in a room, or are you going to leave it open to what works for people on the ground?
I think that's a COPS rules type of thing. We will able to accommodate, I mean, I don't know that it matters to us as much as it does from a competition perspective. I don't know if anybody from rules or COPS wants to address that particular aspect, but I think they could be in other locations or they could be together from a logistics perspective. I don't know if there's a competitive aspect to that might need to be addressed, if anybody wants to address that.
So the rules address this question, at least in their initial iteration, by not taking a position on where teams have to be. There is we don't have a defined set of rules that say that you can not be in the same room or you have to be in the same room. That is left to the discretion of local conditions, right? We don't know. There may be places where the virus is essentially unknown by that point, and there may be places that are in the middle of a full-fledged hot zone. The way that we addressed it in the rules was to define the relevant technologies that you could use and the manner in which you could use them. So even if you're at school gathered together, you're still required to seat your attorney at one, screen and your witness at a different screen and the timekeeper at your third screen. And you're not allowed to use, fancy cameras or anything like that. And sort of our idea was to allow to not put constraints on those teams that could gather, but to make sure we didn't set up a situation in which, gathering was particularly advantageous to you, or you could take advantage of a school level of infrastructure. And that's the balance that was struck in this iteration of the rules. We'll see, as we get closer, we may learn more, we may see different things happening around the country and make decisions for something that's I don't want to say minor, because it's obviously not minor to the teams, but relative to the scope and scale of the competition, that's not a decision we have to make today in a final way. And so we'll see how it works everywhere. But I think as a national competition, our choices would have to be, from my personal perspective, either mandate that everyone stay home and be in separate locations, or leave the teams the option of either gathering as a team or that. I don't think that we could ever mandate that you gather as a team under the circumstances. That's not, I don't know that we would ever want to be in that position. And that could wind up excluding certain competitors based on their own local conditions. And those local conditions, as we all have seen, can change relatively rapidly. And so it's, I could see us going in either of those directions, but, I've been having conversations with many of you, including, folks like the CNMI, where the fact that you are an island is protective to a substantial degree against inadvertent spread of COVID. And it may be that the easiest and best way for them to compete is to move to a place where the internet is stronger. And that might be the school. And I think, we tried to balance that, but the one screen per competitor rule is the one that I think is designed to sort of address that. And I see Sam has his hand up.
Yeah, that's exactly what I was going to ask about. So, and I'm in the middle literally of this week figuring out our competition format and calendar and everything. And we were looking at using the wide format camera angle similar to what the Empire competition has used. So with our state program. So what you're saying is that the national rules call for an attorney at one camera, a witness at another camera. Is that right? What I'm hearing? And then number two, if that's the case, how do you plan to handle the audio?
How do we plan to handle, I'm sorry, the last word I missed.
The audio.
Oh, the audio. We're expecting teams to test it out and make sure that you're not in a room, like you can't be sitting next to each other or else there's going to be feedback. The team can still gather and have the witness laptop in a room, and that the witness right before their turn goes out and goes and sits in that room as though they're sitting on the stand. And for the timekeeper, that's not an audio issue, that's just video. They can stay muted the entire time and then just pop their camera on to hold up the signs or type it into the chat or both. So that's that's our solution. Empire has that great wide angle camera, but they sent everybody one with the registration that you paid for Empire. And, our registration is a bit lower than that. So I know we were designing around not having to send every team a camera and not sure about the availability. So we did not design it that way. At the national level, we wanted to go with, if your team won the states on your cell phones, you could compete on your cell phone kind of level of technology. And then there was also a concern for us, and I think it would be echoed, and again, I'm speaking for me, not for the whole board here. But if you were in a state where there was a hot zone situation in May and your team couldn't gather to look all professional sitting together on the wide angle camera and everything else, you were forced to be doing this from your living room or your spare bedroom, trying to keep your kid sister out. And some other team that was in a state that had a different situation at that point could set up the wide angle. We were just concerned that it would subconsciously affect the judges, no matter how much you instruct them, that this team looks like they've got all their stuff together and they're sitting all there nicely. So we set up a situation where you couldn't do that.
To your question, Sam, and kind of add my latest information from this, I had a school that competed in both of the empires, the one at home and the one location one. And she and I talked today for a good bit about their experiences and kind of how she felt it went and the good and the bad and all that kind of stuff. And she said that the everyone at home worked okay. It was fine. There was fewer technological issues because it just worked a lot better in that sense. It was easier to hear because everyone was in front of their camera right there, versus in the one location, then everyone was kind of further back because of the setup. But the big thing that was lost was the communication between the attorneys at the attorney table, and Empire let them use whatever technology they wanted to communicate. And so they had a group meet chat set up for their defense attorneys and then for their prosecution attorneys to be able to talk back and forth. But then that got into the idea that anybody can get on there and coach along the way. She said for the one location, it was nice to have all the kids at the table. She said that they all felt like they competed better, that they were kind of more on point when the three of them could talk together, kind of thing. She said the good, but the bad part was the spacing. Was that you had a wide angle camera and it was really wide, and the table for the attorneys was kind of far away, and it's hard to hear because they were so far away from the microphone that made it awkward. And she said that having gone through both, her preferred setup would be kind of a hybrid of having all the witnesses at their own location at home calling in the camera, but having the three attorneys in one spot at one table with the camera on all three, kind of thing. And so that way you could hear better, they can communicate, and you wouldn't have as many people around. Now, obviously it's going to be up to local restrictions and that kind of thing. But she said that would have created a nice balance between not having too many bodies in the room and having the attorneys be able to speak to each other. So that's something that we're going to look at encouraging is, if you can get together, then we're going to say have your attorneys be in the one room at a table with the one camera, and then your witnesses at home or whatnot, and then go from there. If none of them can be together, then they got to deal with not being able to be together. But if you can, maybe not all in one room, but with at least attorneys in one room. So that's kind of where we are in Georgia.
Just to let you know, I'm not being critical. I'm asking because I'm trying to figure out things for us. So that's the root of my question. So.
No, and I think that's probably the point, right? You do whatever's best for Alabama, and then which might look different when it comes to nationals, though. I think that's kind of where we all are.
And I think too that the board is of the mindset that once we go through a bunch of competitions, we're going to take notes as kind of what worked for everybody, what didn't work, and we're all willing to change our approach to stuff after having gone through a number of options and exercises and stuff. So like Paul said, the iteration that we're at now, this is where we're at now, without having too much data to kind of see if this is going to work or if this is the best practice for it. We may decide it's different down the road and not see any issue with one team at home and one team all together or whatever.
I wonder if it's, I'm sorry, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry. I just, this is John from Connecticut. I had a question on a related point in terms of the use of cameras. I judged a law school mock trial a couple of weeks ago, and I saw some of the competitors were using the cameras in their laptops. Others had independent webcams and were able to. Everybody was at home when they presented, but the ones on the webcams were able to stand up and move around. Do any of you have restrictions on that?
We do in Pennsylvania. Okay. We actually put in 2 rules that are relevant, one of which was this sort of commercially available hardware rule.
Okay.
To address the fact that you could use a webcam, but it couldn't be, some kind of, super professional camera. I mean, I'm on a 1080p, little Logitech right now. We didn't think that that was a problem, but we went back and forth about the national rule that permits standing during certain portions of the thing. And we actually determined in Pennsylvania to say no, nobody could stand even for openings or closings, because we were concerned about, a team with a better microphone and a better camera could more easily do that. And so, we went the opposite way and sort of said, for purposes of economic balancing, we're just not going to let you do that.
Yeah, that makes sense to me, because we were told as judges, we were told, don't hold it against the team if they're using the laptop versus the independent webcam, but it was impossible not to. The presentation was just that much better, even with a simple webcam.
Yep.
So we'll keep that in mind, because we're doing the electronic rules now for our competition, where we have 3 days scheduled in January.
Speaking of those rules, I know that here in Arkansas, we try our best to basically mirror the national rules as much as possible, simply so that our students, so that whoever wins doesn't have to learn a different set of rules. So when the board approved our rules, I basically forwarded those rules to our rule subcommittee and said, here's a starting point so that we didn't have to reinvent the wheel. And just going through their updates, I think the only things that they changed were the things that were specific to nationals and didn't apply to our competition. So I guess that raises the question of whether anybody is doing anything that substantially deviates from what the board has already published as what the national rules are going to be.
That was the only big deviation that Pennsylvania decided on, and we decided on it after a lot of conversation. I think we also had a deviation with respect to what happens if the whole team crashes out. But that was, just because we can, right? Like you can have a rematch a week later. You can't really do that with nationals. So we had a lot more options, and we put them in as options for our coordinators.
I don't know if anybody here had participated in in any of that had their teams participate in the Empire competitions. But I wonder if it would be instructive to watch the finals videos from their two different modes of competition, just to see how it worked. And I'm
It probably
guessing,
would. Yeah, it probably would. I peeked into the one on Sunday to see how it went. Where they're all in one location, and one team was right at the good spot at the table. The other table was way far back, and so I mean their setup wasn't consistent between the two. But it seemed like it worked pretty well overall. I mean they had their movements down. The witness was in one spot for direct, and then when it came to cross, they moved the chair right in front of the screen so they could talk to the screen and that kind of thing. So overall, it seems to have worked out. I didn't see any of the individual location one, but they are both linked from their Facebook page, I believe.
thanks. Okay. What other questions do people have for Chuck?
One of the things too, I think when we get to the judge recruitment perspective, since it's virtual and you all have great judges in your states that may or may not have been able to come in person, this will be a great opportunity for you to potentially reach out to them and kind of recruit them if they want to participate this year, and are able to do that on a virtual platform. It's a lot easier, and we would welcome that from a recruiting standpoint. We'll certainly be recruiting our Indiana folks, but I think it's an opportunity to have more national judges participate than maybe have been able to in the past. So once we get the platform and everything up and running, of course you'll be the first to know, but we'll reach out. And if you have folks that you want to contact that have judged your state and you think would be great at the national competition, we'd love to enlist them. And the other part of this too, I'm sorry, we really will need facilitators too. It's a different role than the in-person facilitation, but it's a crucial role for this online. And we have some ideas, and we'll talk to CEOPS and get kind of in the nitty gritty, but that's another aspect too that we might be calling on folks for. Sorry, Carrie, go ahead.
Well, what I was just going to say is that it would be helpful if your recruitment committee could put together some sort of email that we could forward to people.
Yep, we'll be happy to do that and get
Okay.
a template essentially for everybody with the links and everything else. We're in the process of working through the registration portal and sort of making it into a virtual one, as opposed to contemplating a virtual competition as opposed to in person. So all those, obviously we're not generating Zoom links yet, but all of those can be embedded, and we have a lot of robust online registration processes, but that'll hopefully be helpful in this process. But absolutely, we'll be happy to do that and make it easy for you to reach out to your folks and hopefully get them to join up.
Okay. Thank you. Anything else?
There's a question, Chuck. Can you expand on the facilitator role? What do you mean by that?
So one of the things and it depends on how we have it set up. And again, a lot of these conversations will get into the nitty-gritty of CEOPS, but we're going to have, and if some people, the Utah one that we did, that many of you were involved with earlier this summer or whenever it was, is some informative on this process, as well as Empire, et cetera. But the idea is to have a number of Zoom licenses with courtrooms in them. We're still trying to find the magic number. Is that 4 trials, 5 trials, 6 trials, probably no more than that per Zoom license, but then have potential facilitators who are able to either be in those courtrooms or potentially be able to liaison with the main room if there's issues, if there's something else, as almost the court reporter type thing. It'll be a different function. Some of the things will be the same. And again, more to come when we sort of drill into this with the CEOPS folks, but it'll be an important role. And if there are people, either you yourself or other people that that might be, I would say there could be a higher level of technology or comfort with that might be necessary. So we might be reaching out. We hope to be able to put a job description essentially together and to say, here's what they will do and here's what we need. So be on the lookout for that if you can either identify some folks to help us with that too. It's not just the judge recruiting. It'll be some of this facilitation recruiting too, which we had in person, but it'll be a bit of I anticipate a different type of skill set.
Great. Anything else? Okay, I know that we had a whole bunch of back and forth on the score sheet stuff, and I'll be perfectly honest with you, our case came out this week, so they kind of just floated on by me, so I don't really know what the discussion is, but I'll just put this out there. How are folks, have folks been able to put together what they want to use for their score sheets? Are there any hiccups or things that are worrying to you on putting that together? Do you think you have a good model? Tell us how things are going. Go ahead, Nix.
Yeah, I've got one that I sent out. It's on through Cognito forms. It's a little bit more, I guess, involved than a Google form kind of thing would be. But I've got it set so where it has all the witness names that you pull from a drop down for each witness, and if you don't fill in a box, it gives you a warning kind of thing, and does the math at the back end, and then it dumps it all into the spreadsheet that you can export to Excel and then do what you want to from there. And so I've been working on, when I do get score sheets in, how to take what I need, put it into my Excel sheet to do the math and to figure out, all the winner loser ballots, that kind of stuff and everything. I'm not doing our first level competition in like one day that we usually do. I'm spreading it out over several weeks. And so I'll have the next day to do that sort of thing. So I'm not on a very tight turnaround sort of idea. But I've test run it with some scores and played with it, and it seems to work out all right.
Anybody else? Quick question: is Cognito just a platform?
Yeah, just a website. I mean, it's just like JotForm. It's just another website like that, and they've got a free version, and then they've got I think I'm paying for the first level of pay, which just allows for a few more things and whatnot.
And have you been putting stuff like that into the that online section on our website?
No, because so I need to figure out how to share the form that I created. I mean, I have to like save as a template, and then be able to tell people how to find it. Yeah, so that part I haven't quite figured out yet. Of how to kind of get it out of my file cabinet, if you were.
So would you have to have a subscription to Cognito to be able to use it?
Probably at least an account.
Okay.
I'm trying to think if there's what might be in that the paid level, and I think the paid level is like $10 a month. It's not that much. But I use it for a lot of things with the program. So not just for the score sheet, but I use it for pretty much any forms that the teams need to fill out and whatnot. It's a Cognito form they fill out, and I just go from there with it. So I use it, all year long.
Colorado uses Cognito forms too for that. So we do our registrations and everything through that. It works really well. But that's going to be our scoring platform as well.
Mm-hmm.
Sam, I think you were starting to ask something.
Yeah, I was going to ask Michael, I liked your form, but I didn't go past the first page because I didn't know if it was something that was in test mode that we could kind of.
Oh, sure. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, in any of them that I get, I'm going to clear out before it goes real. So yeah, go ahead and make up a judge name. Go for it. Somebody did me at me.com, I think. So probably had somebody play with it.
And Laura, I think you were trying to say something as well. No?
I mean, we just, and Lourdes could speak to this as well. We just did our trials with, I can't remember, 140 teams or 134 teams. And we just used Google form and downloaded to an Excel that goes into our scoring system. So that seemed to work if people just want something simple and free.
Okay.
Anybody? Sorry,
Jessica. No, go ahead, Jessica. You and I just have this way of talking over each other, don't we?
You and I always. I wait until you're talking and then I start. No, I was going to say in Oregon, we're using JotForm, similar. And I put a link to our judge portal in the chat, that on that page, you can access a practice ballot. It's in the practice materials that has just a section. So if you wanted to go in and open that, you can submit it. That's fine. It just lands in a practice spot. But it's a good example of what ours is going to look like. But it dumps to an Excel sheet that I preloaded all our formulas in. So it's not sophisticated in its tabbing ability, but it is a good platform for, entry, I think. And I've tried to make it easy to use. So you're welcome to go in and submit all you want or click around in that.
Great, thank you. Anybody else have any advice or issues or something that they've developed or come across that they're really liking?
I have another thing to offer to folks. In that same link that I sent, I have a Zoom practice session that has a Zoom room that I'm opening for my judges if they are uncomfortable with Zoom and they want some time to just go in Zoom and play. I'm just going to open those rooms up. If you want to offer that to your folks as well, that's fine. Anybody who wants to log into those rooms during those times are welcome to do so. And it's literally just an open Zoom room. So, because I'm certainly going to have judges that have never opened a Zoom room before. So letting them just go in and practice renaming themselves, muting, turning your camera on and off, that sort of thing. And I'm opening it for like 5-hour periods on certain days. If you want to share that with your people, feel free. I'm literally just opening it and letting it be. So that's, if y'all want to jump in there or your people want to jump in there, you're welcome.
Great, thank you. Anybody else have anything they want to add about score sheets? Ellen, go ahead.
Yeah, sorry. So something that Nationals that Michigan doesn't do are some of the like witness overall kind of things. Are there any like overall witness thing? Words are hard today in attorney pieces. I'm really glad this is recording. Any other special tabulation pieces that you do for awards for individual speakers or attorneys or witnesses or whatever that may be? We don't, so that's why the question is probably so awkwardly worded, but curious if people do some of those extra special awards and how they might accommodate that in a virtual setting.
I think the Outstanding Witness and Outstanding Attorney Awards, the way that Nationals and John has done it is that each judging panel member puts down a ranked 1, 2, 3 name from the courtroom for witness, and then 1, 2, 3 names for the attorneys. And then it goes back and gets tabulated. And if you're first, then you get 5 points to it. If you're second, you get 3. And if you're third, you get 1. And then across that, it adds up and totals and all that kind of stuff and everything, which to me is very, very complicated. I had a math nerd handle that for Nationals in Athens, and he loved getting neck deep into that. So I let him have at it. But I'm sure that if you can figure out the math, there's a way that you can get the names and run it through an Excel thing, but then you're having to worry about the spelling of the names and making sure that it's the right one that they're intending and that kind of thing. So that might be a little bit more difficult. Because in person, you could chase them down saying, what does this say? Who is this? Kind of thing, which would be harder in a virtual thing.
Do any states do awards like that at their state level?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I've been trying to think that through too. So when you get your voice back and you're able to have a good talking day, just hit me up and we can brainstorm and see if we can come up with something. So the other question that I was just going to ask is just kind of open it up to the floor. And we asked this with our in another setting, but are there things specific to mock trial and virtual mock trial that are keeping you up at night? I hope not, but you know, things that you're worrying about right now that maybe you could bring to the floor and we could help address.
This isn't just like confession, I haven't been sleeping well time, but this is more, you know, material and kind of fun thinking, but I think it's also real because orders have to be made now. I'm curious what people are doing to make their judges feel special, or if they're doing like, or for their schools, like welcome boxes or trinkets for judges or anything along those lines for the, you know, promotional and thank you thing in the virtual world.
No, but thank you for making me think about it now.
No, we can talk late at night when neither one of us is sleeping then. That would be great.
Oh, for us, we've always fed our judges. So the one thing we've guaranteed our judges is a good meal whenever they come. Of course, we can't do that in a virtual world. One thing we have done in Connecticut is we do publish the name of all the volunteer judges in the state bar journal, in the magazine, as a thank you.
We were thinking for our state petition to have Grubhub deliver.
Oh, that's a cool idea.
That is a great idea.
Huh. Do you win the lottery or something to afford that, Cynthia?
Sorry, this isn't with mock trial, but for another group I'm working with because we can't meet. Someone has said that that virtual Uber Eats, so they can pick out whatever restaurant they want. So and Costco seems to have cards that are discounted right now. So just another thought.
Interesting. Huh.
And just to share what we were thinking was, you know, schools might get a welcome box, which might have a cute little like novelty gavels and, you know, a robe. And that's also where their certificates would go and those type of things. And then for judges, you know, whatever mug, and then some other materials that they might actually need if they want their own laminated time cards or whatever to put up. And then some sort of thank you. But yeah, brainstorming what other options and what might be viable is kind of fun, but also kind of cool. Well, fun and cool.
Susan, you also did a thank you. You were sharing that kudo board as a thank you that you gave to all your volunteers. Is that something that you're doing too?
Haven't got that far in my thinking yet. Just doing teen court and We the People and mock trial will fall into place somewhere around there. But yeah, I know that there's so many different things up in the air right now, but that's definitely one of my favorites. So probably yes. Plus we have some funding from to give judge gifts. So I don't know what that might look like or anything. So might be a combination.
Actually, on the topic of judge recognition, I was wondering how many of your states give CLE credit to the judges for judging high school mock trial?
We do, and we've just been able to do it in the past 3 years.
Okay.
Did you submit your, Michael, did you do a write-up on that you submitted to the?
No, I had the chair of the CCLC committee is an attorney coach. And so she kind of has been talking about it for a couple of years and badgered and pushed, and then they voted on it in a meeting and no one objected and it happened, and there we go. So okay. We've always been able to give it to attorney coaches, but just recently to judging panel members. And again, that's because Jenny was the chair and she's crazy, so you don't really want to argue with her.
Ours is it has to be self-reported. We don't have to do the write-up. It's actually written into the rules as an approved volunteer activity. Oh, wow. But it's one of the self-reported credits that they can get, and it's they can do it for We the People or mock trial. They both.
Oh, interesting. Oh, wow. Yeah, because Connecticut's all self-reported, but so it's just a question of getting recognition for mock trial. So, you know, when I approach our rules committee, I want to be able to represent that, numerous states do this, including New York, which is our adjacent state.
The Oregon rules, it's very clear. It has like a approved volunteer activities, and it says judging of competitions such as mock trial. It has it listed. So
in Georgia, the sitting judges can get their ICJE credit through mock trial, but that's up to them, and that's always been the case. If they bench a mock trial round or whatever, that's self-reporting. But for attorney CLE credit, it's brand new.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. John, were you about to say something?
No, I saw Marguerite trying to in the chat with that mock trial qualifies for ethics CLEs, which is even better.
I'll tell you, it makes a big difference. They're all very interested in that because otherwise they get loaded up with everything, but ethics are hard to get.
No, you're right. That's terrific. Thank you.
I think we're the only state that specifically prohibits mock trial from getting any sort of credit. So this is good to hear, and maybe we can make a pitch.
Well, actually, Connecticut's CLE commission a few years ago, when our rule came out, we actually in the FAQs it said, "Can I judge mock trial and get CLE credit?" And the answer was no, absolutely not. Not recognized by the rules. So it's just something we'll need the bar to spend some capital on.
We've been forbidden too, Laura. So we're working on trying to get around it. In fact, I got some help from those in Indiana, so we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, I'd love to see how your campaign, like how you're trying to push it. I think that could help some of our other states that are similar to us trying to push for that credit.
Definitely. No, I think to me the big one in Connecticut is that New York recognizes it, and we strive for some synchronization with New York in terms of the credit. So I think that's the strongest argument we have. So, but I'll definitely share my research once I have a chance to actually do some actual research.
Great, thank you. Okay, anything else people are dealing with or questions that you want to bring to the crew?
I have a question about folks planning virtual competitions. Is this the right time?
Go for it.
Out for a minute. So one of our big questions we're working on is how many trials per day and how long to engage. And right now we're looking at basically a student would be involved for a Saturday, but it'd be a long day of 3, perhaps 4 trials, which I'm leaning towards 3, but just kind of want to see what everybody else was thinking on their capacity and their schedule.
Are your trials the same as kind of the national model, where it's 3 witnesses per side, open and closing?
Same format, typically a little bit easier. The witness statements are typically only about 2.5 pages, not a 9-page detailed deal. Average trial, trials are typically under 2 hours. Hour and a half is typically the longest.
We're doing 2 slots per day. So ours are going to be on weekday, late afternoon, evening. And I'm doing an early round and a late round. And that I've given myself 3.5 hours in each of those blocks just for login time and sorting time between. Like the trial won't take that long by any means. Our trials are usually 2 hours or less, but we're going to have time to get everybody where they belong. So that's what we're doing, just 2 a day. I can't imagine being on Zoom much longer than that, doing that. And our judges, some of them will judge back to back. They like to do that. And that's a solid 6 hours sitting on Zoom. That's a long time. So I don't feel like I can add much to that and get people to do it. So.
What time are you going to have your trial start, Jessica?
We're starting, login time for the early round is 2 p.m. and login time for the second round, the late round, is 5:45.
So you're able to do it during school hours?
Yes, most of our schools get out by then. The high school kids most of them are done by 2.
Wow.
And then they, particularly with online school, we don't have any schools in person right now. Like Oregon is completely virtual statewide. So particularly with online school, they're done midday.
Yeah, we're not allowed to do anything organized team activity wise during school hours.
Interesting. They don't care for us. Because like we have even our state competition in normal times is on a Friday and a Saturday, and the Friday is during school hours. They treat it like a trip, like you would an athletics trip. Like, you know, the softball team's going somewhere. Well, the mock trial team is going somewhere.
That's how we do it in Connecticut. We tried doing weekends once, and it didn't work out for either volunteers or for the teams, because a lot of on Saturdays a lot of the kids have sports. So we for the most part we do everything during the work day, primarily because the court has availability as well.
Okay. Any other questions or issues people want to bring to the table?
Sam, how many teams are you expecting for your first level of competition?
60.
Okay.
And I'm trying to spread out the preliminary rounds into 3 different Saturdays with about 20 apiece.
Could you also do some weeknight ones? Because you might be able to get some judges and evaluators on a Wednesday night that may not be able to do a Saturday. Maybe, I don't know.
I think my worry about the evening, going too late in the evening, is making sure people don't forget they signed up, you know, and head home and forget to go on Zoom. I'm sure there's ways of, you know, sending text reminders or whatever, but that's been my concern. Okay.
John, you asked, will each concurrent trial require its own Zoom Pro account? Georgia, we're doing one Zoom account and using breakout rooms, kind of like what Ken said from Minnesota. How are others looking at it?
I use Zoom a bunch so far, and I've used one Zoom account per meeting. But yesterday I found out that there's an add-on for Zoom that is unadvertised that you can run up to 20 concurrent meetings with one account, and it's only like $28 per month. But you can't find it anywhere on the internet. You have to talk to the sales team about it. I haven't used it, but a colleague of mine in Illinois was the one telling me about it, and it's a real thing. She's used it, but it's not the route I would want to go. We've got a pool of them that we use throughout the year, one per account, and to me that's the cleaner one, because somebody logs in, they're the technician, they stay there the whole time, and that sort of thing.
That's our model, is the one Zoom room. Well, we're gonna have 2, because on some nights I've got a lot of teams, but 2 Zoom rooms, put them into breakout rooms. And from my perspective, I can have an administrator in those Zoom rooms, and it's less links to keep track of on my end. My concern is that I'm gonna screw up my links and have, you know, if I have 20 links, you know, getting the wrong link to the wrong people. And then when, you know, if I screw something up in the building and everybody's there, I can solve that problem pretty easily. But if they're all scattered all over the state and I'm trying to, you know, redo the link, that worries me. So having just the 2 links will be nice.
Melissa asked a good question. Has anyone used the self-select breakout room feature? I didn't know that existed. Is there a way that a caller can select a specific breakout room to go to?
If they have the updated version of Zoom, it's only about a month old, I believe. And so if you've got an older version, you will not have the option.
Well, that'd be so helpful.
Yeah, but I think then the problem too, and I could be wrong, is that it allows them to go to any different room that they want. So they would be able to join another breakout, switch between breakout rooms, which is something you might.
Yeah, okay. I know that you can set up breakout rooms before the meeting and be able to put specific email addresses into a breakout room. So when you log in with that email address, you automatically get dumped into courtroom 206. But that's the only courtroom you go to. So you don't have to do the manual reshuffle. They'll wind up there, but you need to have their email addresses ahead of time. And I'm going to try that because there's some nights I'm going to have 10 trials at one time happening. So
and they have to use the email address as a Zoom account.
Yes.
It has to be associated.
Yeah, and I'm going to require everyone who calls in to have an account, not just click a link from the website to join, but to have a registered account.
I'm not making them have an email address, only because just like when we started this meeting, like the confusion between accounts and, if it's the computer that, mom uses for work, but now I'm using it for mock trial or whatever, I'm worried that we're going to have that last minute shuffle situation. And so instead I'm doing the links and they just have to rename themselves and I'm dumping them. And they don't, observers, I've only got a set number of observer accounts for each room that they're allowed to have. So, and they can't exceed that. Once I put my 3 in each room, they're done. They can't have more than that. But I don't have a lot. We've talked about this before. I don't have a lot of control. Like if somebody wants to game the system, then they possibly could. And I have to trust that they won't. And if I find out they do, then they get the boot, but it's hard.
This is Amanda from Maine. I'm still on my Zoom with my court, but I muted them. The number of schools that we have in Maine competing, I believe to be significantly less than probably just about anyone else on here. But because we're talking about this whole Zoom breakout room situation, I don't know how you all do it, but our schools are terrified that judges are going to think that, they care which high school wins. And so everyone's identified by a letter. And so what I did is I had all of the students I sent to their coaches the information they had to pre-register. And they had to have their Zoom name be their name with their school letter in front of it. I tried to pre-assign them to breakout rooms and that didn't go how I wanted it to. So I just made it the option that they could self-select, but then I told the coaches, if you are I named the breakout rooms like, A versus J. And I told the coaches, if you see someone in that room that is not an A or a J, then tell me basically. And it worked really well. I still had to manually assign a lot of people because depending on operating systems, they couldn't self-select. Probably only about a third could self-select, but it only took me a few minutes to send people. And then a little screen popped up that allowed me to see who was in there. So I would have also seen if somebody was in there that shouldn't be. And if they had questions, they'd pop out or send me a chat and I'd pop into a room if there was an issue. And again, I have far less trials going on than probably everybody else, but it worked so much better than I feared.
I would also have just another recommendation because we just finished ours or we're in the middle of it. We just finished the really large ones, which had 800 people on each Zoom and 2 different Zoom accounts. So 1,600 people. I would just make sure that the kids are definitely joining through the app and they have the most updated app because we had some people in the really large one get kicked out and they couldn't come back into their breakout rooms because they weren't on the app and they didn't have the most updated app. So that was a small little kink, but then after that, we didn't have a problem.
Thank you. That's good advice.
We're also doing a dry run a couple of weeks before where they're all going to have to try and log in and then I'll dump them to rooms just so if there is an issue like that, like you discover you aren't using the app or not updated, then you've got a little bit to solve that problem when it's not competition time. Because I can only imagine, so particularly some of my less savvy teams, my powerhouses, I'm not concerned about. They're going to figure out all the stuff and they'll be fine. But some of the teams that are doing this for the first time or, whatever, I'm going to give them a chance to to try it, log in, see what works and what doesn't, so they can solve that early.
Yeah, and also just be on the lookout because Zoom updates its apps like at random times. So I found a schedule which had all the projected updates. So it did it on the 8th, it did it on the 9th, it did it on the 16th. So they're constantly updating their apps, their app.
Well, I will pay attention because that is, I just know there's going to be issues like that we're going to have to solve in the moment, but trying to head off as much as possible, you know, before it does happen.
So the only other suggestion I would have too, if you have like maybe 2 other Zoom accounts that they're just ready to go in case you have to move a whole trial off of your regular one Zoom account that you're using, that's helpful just in case you have to have a backup.
Thank you. That's a good.
For a different event, one of the things we found over these last weeks was, you know, we might have said for round 1, events are in A through G, and then round 2, we would reassign A through G. And we found that was not, there was a better way to do that, which is A through G is round 1, and then H through whatever is round 2, because you can see where people are at much easier. And then as they're ready, they can move into their rooms. You don't have to wait necessarily for one to move. And it made our process a significantly smoother for an event we had too late last night.
Okay, we're a little past the top of the hour. Unless anybody has anything pressing, I think I'll call it a day. Quick question for you, Michael. As you have done for previous times, can you make sure that you find a way to save the chat?
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. All right, we will talk to everybody a month from now. Everybody have a lovely Thanksgiving, and we'll talk to you soon. Take care, everybody.
Thank you all.